Okay, welcome to part 2 of the series that we are in, talking about Paul, 1 Corinthians 7 through 8, and then 32 through 33, and then, just really the entire chapter, like breaking it apart, what Paul is, talking about here. And I left off with Paul. He likes to circle around. He likes to make a point and then circle back to that point. And I left off with him, circling back around to 1 Corinthians 7, 7 through 8. He's making a point, and he's later with 7 verses 32 through 33, he's circling back around and giving his reason for his point. And we read that in the first video, and he is saying that you have more time when you're single. You have more time to invest in God. You have more time to spend with God. When you're married, yes, you have time to spend with God, and in fact, you can help each other learn, right? But you have to make when you're married, you now have to make that time, because you also have to make time for the other person. The other person has needs. So you have to meet those needs. And then later, when you have children, you have to meet your children's needs as well. But in a godly marriage, you also have to remember to put God first. And so therefore, you just have to, in the mix of a marriage life, you have to find time to put God first. Whereas if you were single, man, how much time in the world can you have to put God in front of everything? And so when we look at that, we see that he's making a point. And so you'll be like, well, what is he saying then? Let me find it. What is Paul, saying in 1 Corinthians 7, 2 through 3? Well, let's take a look. Verse 2. But because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. And going above verse 2 and verse 1. Now, regarding the questions you asked in your letter, yes, it is good to be abstent from sexual relations. So here he's like, yes, it should be, but again, he's, it sounds like he's, contradicting himself. Like, it sounds like he doesn't make any sense. So you're like, well, what about that? What about those verses? Because it sounds like if you don't have an issue with sexual sin, then you should just be single, right? Well, go back to the thought at the first video, the thought that I have, the problem is that if every person was single, you're either going to have to populate the earth by fornication, or the earth is not going to populate. So what is he saying? If you're single, it's good to be absent from sex. If you are single, yeah, you should be absent from sex. Because fornication is a sin. Homosexuality is a sin. He's clearly saying, yes, if you are single, stay away from sex. Stay away from sexual desires if you're single. And so now, let's also take a look at 1 Corinthians 7:25 through 27. Because you might be, you'd be like, well, let me point to that. Let me point to that. What about this scripture? It's still confusing to me. Or you might be a pighead. And you might be like, well, let's read it. Now, and this is 25. 1 Corinthians 7:25. Now, regarding your questions about young women who are not married, I do not have a command from the Lord. Meaning, well, there isn't really a command here for them. But the Lord in His mercy has given me wisdom that can be trusted, and I share it with you. Because of the present crisis. What crisis? Well, look back. I think it is best to remain as you are. If you have a wife, do not seek to end the marriage. If you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. And you would be like, well, what does that mean? So if I'm single, is he going back and saying, well, if you're single, you should not have a, like, what does that mean? Well, again, because go back to when I said in the first video about Ecclesiastes and about Genesis, right? So therefore, what is he suggesting? What is he talking about? You have to wonder, is he just saying, let's be wise before we jump into marriage? Because look, he's saying, if you are single and you struggle with, sexual sin, verse 2 and 3, yeah, you should get married. But I don't want anybody to rush in to marriage.